Wait, hold on. Hold on a moment. Isn't this an already familiar video on my channel? Yes. Yes it is. However, I have had a few new ideas to toy about with this concept, so please do forgive me for reusing a video idea that I had back in 2023. Now, in case you don't know, back in 2023, I made a video talking about how Stanley was not the original number 2, as he arrived on Sodor in 1920 as the number 2, while Sir Handel, otherwise known as Falcon at that time, arrived on Sodor in 1904. And we know Falcon was the mid-Sodor's number 3 when he came to Sodor. So today, I have a few ideas to toy about with. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, before people go rushing to the comments saying I took this idea from Jet, his video where he spoke about the mine engine being the number 2 came out this year, 2025. My original video where I said the mine engine was the number 2 predates his video by almost 2 years, as that came out in 2023, and I came to that conclusion in that video. Now, to be fair, this isn't a difficult idea to throw together, so I'm not that bothered, to be honest. Anyway, the reason I propose the mine engine is that we don't have a canonical number for them. Yes, their original model had a number 9, but we don't even know if the earlier versions of Audrey's mid-Sodor layout are canon. All we can really guarantee is that the mine engine was privately owned by the Casney-Hallwyn Mines. Though, what if the mine engine was owned by the mid-Sodor originally? We know the mid-Sodor struggled with finances, so it makes sense they'd sell the engine to the mine. So that is our first candidate. Hello, it's editing me here. I have realised I'm coming off a little bit mean in this video, I think. That's not the intention, but anyway, that's not why I'm bringing this clip in. It's to expand on the mine engine, because I think there's another reason why they, or he or she, could be the number 2. And it comes down to the livery the engine wears. Now, I think, this doesn't apply to Stuart or Stanley when he was painted red, but this does apply to almost all the other mid-Sodor engines, because the mid-Sodor seems to colour code their locomotives. Like Jim and Jerry, they are green, they pull goods, they pull the horse and cart. Falcon, John and Jennings, they pull the boat trains. They are the express engines, they are the passenger engines. Albert, who was always painted red before his, Mark II model was made into a spare Falcon, so we won't include that, but he was always painted red and he pulled the parliamentary. But I guess red is also the colour of spare locomotives, maybe? Because Jennings was also repainted red when he became a spare engine. But that could also just be he was made to be a spare Renius, I don't know, and I don't know if that's the case, that's just a little theory of mine. Tim and Stanley, before Audrey's model of Stanley to be clear, they were both painted black. Tim was a tram engine who pulled the workman trains, and Stanley, and Audrey's model of Stanley for a time, had side plates. So, we know that model was painted black for a time. They'll say for a time it was painted black. So where does Duke and the mine engine fit into this? Well, Audrey's model of the mine engine and Duke seem to share a very similar, or at least the same livery, which is sort of an orangish, a brownish orange colour. So assuming the mine engine was to appear in the Railway series, he would just be brown, like Duke. So then my theory is, the brown was meant to be the livery of the mid-Sodor, and the mine engine being painted in that brownish orange or that brown, depending if you want to go by the model or if he was supposedly meant to be in the Railway series. Then him being brown would be a byproduct of him being part of the mid-Sodor in its very early years. So And then when like they had the other engines come in, that's when they decided to start colour coding. But Duke and the mine engine being the first engines on the line were allowed to keep their livery. That's just like another little theory going on. One thing is that the mine engine's Mark II model was originally painted green, so maybe it was also a goods engine. But we don't really know though, what if it could be. But this is just the theory video, isn't it? This is what this video is, theorising. So let's get to the next ones, shall we? I bet you're thinking, wow, allow me to explain. Thomas Wiki claims that Audrey originally planned the mid-Sodor's original 3 locomotives to be all Hughes Falcons. And in fact, Sir Handel was the original number 3 in this case. Though originally he never has a name while on the mid-Sodor. Though as Audrey figures out the mid-Sodor's history, these locomotives, with the exception of Sir Handel, were promptly retconned to feature the Duke as number 1, later just known as Duke. Now this does go unsourced, so take it with a pinch of salt. Thomas Wiki really needs a much stricter sourcing policy, like some other wikis. Now my idea here is that what if they weren't retconned? Rather, they are the original numbers 2 and number 3. Number 3 was scrapped and Falcon replaced him, we know that, that's a fact. Or possibly even Falcon was the original number 3 that came with this other Falcon. And maybe number 2 was eventually scrapped or just sent away, which would make room for Stanley. I even think the names of these locomotives are pretty obvious though. Given Wilbur Audrey loved to name his locomotives after their builders, such as Rusty being named after Ruston and Hornsby, Falcon being named after Falcon Works and its basis the Hughes Falcon, Stewart being named after his builder, Kerr Stewart, Jennings being named after his builder, Fletcher Jennings, etc. I think it's pretty logistical to assume these engines would have been called Hughes or Hugh after their basis and their designer's last name, and the other one would have been called Henry after the designer's first name. So I think those names are pretty obvious in my opinion. Hear me out. Yes, we know Albert's was originally the number 3 when he was in his Mark 1 model, and from Mark 2 onwards he was the number 5. However, I am more specifically referring to his Mark 1 and Mark 2 models for this situation, which are more than likely not canon. But if so, what if his Mark 1 or Mark 2 models were actually the original number 2? Maybe his Mark II model was actually one of those previously mentioned Hughes Falcons. We'll more than likely never know who the original number 2 was, but given we had a massive floor dump about the mid-Sodor by Luke Ryan, anything is possible. But if there is one thing that is for certain, it is that Boris will always be our mid-Sodor's original number 2. Did I have to bring Boris back for this sequel video from that original video? Yes. Yes I did. It was too good of an opportunity to pass up, I'm sorry. Now if you want to go and check out my original video on this topic, that should be on screen now alongside another video of mine that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.